Hi everyone! So today we're going to be taking a look at what I like to refer to as my comeback kids. So these are plants that I've been having to rehab for various reasons, or they've just gone through a phase where they weren't doing their best, they weren't looking their best, but all of them have started to turn that around now. And so I want to show them to you, get you caught up on how they're looking, and kind of explain anything I did in particular to help get them back on track. But the first plant I want to take a look at today is actually one of the ones that I am the most happy about making a comeback, and that is my Calathea cancina, aka Calathea Freddy. So for anybody who doesn't know, I don't really have much problem growing Calathea in my house. I know a lot of other people struggle with them. I'm not one of those people, except when it comes to my Calathea Freddy, primarily because Fred wants to flower non-stop almost all year round, and when that happens, he stops putting out new leaves, and then towards the end of last year, he started killing off a bunch of leaves in addition to this, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. I did then test the soil in Fred's pot and discovered that it was quite alkaline. So I have been supplementing with CalMag. The CalMag that I use in particular does have sulfur in it. Sulfur can help to make the soil more acidic, and I was just really hoping that that was going to help, and it seems to be helping. Or if it's not helping, something else has changed, because Fred is finally putting out new leaves and not flowering, you guys. And this time last year, he was still flowering like crazy. Now you're gonna have to excuse the beneficial bug sachet that's on here. I really wanted to make sure Fred didn't get any pests or have any pest issues. Now that we were putting out all of these beautiful new leaves, this is the fullest that this plant has looked in quite some time, you guys, and those leaves look great. Now we are kind of still killing off some of the oldest leaves. This one that's way wonky out here is one of the older leaves, but hopefully you can see there are new leaves still pushing out up in here. There's another one pushing up back in here. So I am just, oh, and there's another one pushing up right there. I am so happy that Fred is filling back in. I was getting concerned, you guys, that maybe Fred wasn't going to make it, and I did keep slipping him periodically out of this pot to make sure that his roots looked good. I know a lot of you had commented that when soil is too alkaline last times, you can have a root rot situation. His roots are fine. Whatever has been going on was not related to a root issue. So I really feel like maybe it was the CalMag that helped. And if you guys are curious in the type of CalMag that I use, I do have a link to my Amazon storefront in the description down below the video. And my CalMag that I use is in that storefront, so you can check that out. But you guys, I just can't say enough about how excited I am about this. I mean, oh, looking so much better. Oh, so excited about this one. Okay, up next we have a couple plants that we potted up together in a video a while back. One of these plants is a rehab plant. It is one of the Monstera albos that I had in my inventory for my rare plant pop-up shops. Actually, you guys, it's one that I kind of was thinking about keeping for myself and kind of had sort of decided I was going to keep it for myself, but I managed to dry rot it. Not fun. So I had it rehabbing in water, trying to get new roots. It was taking forever, but it finally got new roots. We did pot it up together, and now it has pushed out its first new leaf since we potted it up into this leca. Now I do just have it, I didn't want to drip water everywhere, so I set it in like a separate cover pot, but hopefully you guys can see how well rooted it is around in there. Those roots are spreading around big time. I am past due for a leca flush though. I think that's gonna have to happen after this video. This plant probably would have given me even more leaves by this point if I had been staying more on top of changing out my nutrient solution and everything. I'm trying to get better, you guys. But this newest leaf here is so beautiful. Look at all of that nice marbling on there. I mean, look at this leaf right here. I mean, this is why I was thinking about keeping this plant in the first place. I love this more marbled look on Monstera albos, and this one was the most marbled one in my rare plant inventory, and I just think it is absolutely beautiful. I probably still will end up keeping it, you guys, especially now that it's doing better, but it put out this new leaf like super fast after being put into leca, honestly. I was super impressed by it. But at the same time that we potted this up, we potted up the remaining Rhaphidophora tetrasperma propagation I had from a propagation I had done where I had 3 cuttings, and for whatever reason, this one, they were all in the water for the same amount of time, this one just would not root for the longest time. So it finally started getting some roots. We potted it up. At the time that we potted this up, it had one leaf and that leaf was dying. It was like almost completely yellow, I believe, at that point. So it lost that leaf shortly thereafter, and it was just this part of the node right here just sticking up out of the leca until earlier this week when it finally started to push out a new leaf. This leaf is not even fully hardened off. That's why it kind of has slightly transparent and yellowish coloring to it, but it finally pushed this out. I was beginning to think it was never going to happen, but here we are. And let's see how the roots are looking in here. We have spread a lot more roots around. They are slightly greenish. This is probably, well, honestly, guys, I was going to say it might have to do with some algae growth starting to happen, but these two plants are in the same, they're in opaque cover pots where they are in my kitchen, and they're right next to each other. So I'm not quite sure why this one has white roots and this one's is slightly green. It's not like this plant is prone to having slightly green roots, at least not in my experience. The mother plant that I took this cutting off of is not like that. So I'm not exactly sure what that is about, but super happy that it is finally doing something. I mean, if it never did anything, I could have just thrown it away, but it should do something. So at least now we are on the right path. Okay, we have a few plants that we need to look at in place where they live because they are just too big to bring in here. And one of them that we're going to look at later is a plant that has been recovering from a pest outbreak. And since I'm not 100% certain, I think all the pests are gone now, but I'm not 100% certain, so I don't want to take it out of its quarantine room just yet. But let's head into my bedroom to look at my Aphelandra squarosa. Okay guys, so here is the Aphelandra squarosa, and will you look at all of this new growth that is growing back on these branches that I accidentally snapped off when trying to notch this plant. I mean, you guys, we are filling back in very, very nicely. Now, I do want to get a bit more growth going on down here before I start chopping off these ones up here. And what I will do is as soon as we get maybe twice as full as we are currently down here, I will cut the one over here off. I will still leave that one there until we get some new growth on that branch, and then I will start keeping an eye on that. And once we get enough foliage going, I will cut off the final branch, and we will just basically be starting over as a small plant. It's about the size, I guess it was a little bit bigger than this when I first bought it, but that is the nice thing, especially if you start to get really bare branches or anything like that on an Aphelandra squarosa. Sorry, it gets so dark when I go up to the top, you guys. It's crazy how different the lighting changes like that. But if you do start to get big branches and stuff, you can just chop them off lower. Now, there are 4 new growth points going on this one. I think maybe it's only 2 on this one. 2 new growth points going on in that one, 4 new growth points going on that one. So also that helps to make the plant even more bushy when you do cut it back like that. And you can do this with like ficus as well, ficus elasticas, ficus liratas, pretty much any type of ficus, any type of tree-like plant. This really is a tree, you guys, just like ficus. And so any plant like that, you can chop them off like that, and it should trigger more than 1 growth point when it starts to come back in to help you have like a fuller, more bushy plant. But so excited about this one. I cannot actually wait to cut those other branches down. Okay guys, so the next plants I want to update you on are my alocasia that had started to get really grown out. The base of the corm had started to get really grown out, and we did fairly recently, I feel like it hasn't even really been that long, I'll flash up on screen how long it's been, since we repotted these into deeper pots, and they are all doing fabulously. So let's start with the tiny dancer, because when we did this one, I did have an unexpected discovery, and that was that the finer root hairs on the roots of this plant had rotted. Not sure entirely, once again, how that happened. I think I probably let it get too dry, and then those fine root hairs weren't able to rehydrate the next time I watered it, so they rotted off. But the big thick roots that were left were super healthy. Now, I did lose a few more leaves off of this plant after we potted it up into this deeper pot. However, it is now pushing out its first new leaf since we did that, and the roots are looking super great and already starting to spread around in that pot more. So hopefully you can see that. There are finer root hairs I can see starting to come off of those big thick roots as well. So we are definitely on the comeback, on the mend. It's just going to probably be a little bit longer for it to establish those roots back before it really starts to push out more growth, but definitely happy that we're doing better. Now let's look at the Maharani that's kind of poking into the screen over here. I don't know what this plant is doing, you guys. Okay, let's back this up. For anybody who hasn't seen that video or might be new here, my Alocasia Maharani has hands down been my most problematic Alocasia that I've owned. And when we went to pot this into this deeper pot, I think I figured out why. It turns out it was a plug plant. There's a fungus gnat. I swear, you guys, okay. Quick sidebar, I have been fertilizing the last few weeks, making sure everybody has gotten fertilized because I had fallen a little bit behind. When I do that, I take my mosquito dump that I keep in a little mesh bag in my watering cans to help prevent and keep fungus gnats at bay. I take that out because I just don't know how it's going to react with the fertilizer, and I have not put it back in. I keep forgetting, and now I'm starting to see an uptick in fungus gnats. Really freaking annoying. Really freaking annoying. So, pro tip, if you take your fungus gnat mosquito dunk tea bag out of your watering can when you fertilize, make sure you promptly put it back in for the next time you water your plants without fertilizer, because those fungus gnats come back super quick. All right, enough of that. Back to the Maharani. So this has been one of my most problematic Alocasias, and I did discover that it was a plug plant and got the plug off of there, so hopefully that will turn things around. However, I don't know what this leaf is. It has put out a new leaf since we repotted it, you guys. It is not unfurled. I don't really know exactly what this is. Hopefully you guys can see this little, like, deformed little something that's super light colored. Like, I don't know what is happening here. I have no clue. I don't want to mess with it. It seems really fragile. But yeah, I'm like, what is that? What is that? Like, why would you do this to me? We are killing off one of our, well, it's not totally killing it off. It's just doing its weird thing that it does sometimes. It will eventually kill that one off. But the other two leaves look okay. And the other thing is, my Maharani tends to flower way more than any of my Alocasia. I do not know why. And I kid you not, I'm pretty sure we've got another bit of growth starting to come out right there. And I am pretty sure that is going to be a flower, you guys. Like, really? Really? Testing my patience, this one. This one may not remain in my collection through the next year if it doesn't turn its stuff around for me, but it is in general doing better. I mean, it's not killing off leaves super fast like it was before we put it into this deeper pot. And I can see roots starting to show up around the edges. Hopefully you can see that one right there already in this pot. So this is what I'm talking about, you guys. When you take your Alocasias into deeper pots like this, they will kick off new root growth crazy fast. And that usually leads to them kicking off additional growth of other plants from the corms, or technically they're cormlets off of the main corm. So even if your main corm were to die back, there's stuff going on already down in here that should trigger a replacement to the plant. But I'm not worried about it with this one because we haven't lost any leaves since we potted it deeper, unlike the Tiny Dancer. And the next one we're going to look at is my Cupria. We haven't lost any leaves off of the Cupria, and we are pushing out a new one. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And I just watered it earlier, so I'm going to keep it in this cover pot so I'm not dripping water everywhere. But we still have our two leaves that we had when we potted it deeper. I don't remember if this one had that little funky tip going on, but no big deal. However, we are now pushing out a brand new leaf right back here. So super excited about that. Now, this one we did not get quite as deep as we did the other ones, primarily just because of the size of the root system and everything. I didn't have a pot that was ideal for this one. Like, this size pot was going to be a bit too big for it, I felt like. But honestly, you guys, I think maybe that wasn't the right call. Lesson learned. I think I should have gone to this size pot because I'm showing you like how much the roots have started to spread. Like, we can already see a little bit of root spreading here. You saw a decent amount on the Tiny Dancer, but you guys, do you see this? Look at this. And like I said, I just watered it. That's why it looks like it's super wet down there in the bottom. This is new root growth. Those big long white roots are new roots that are popping off from the part of this corm that we buried. It's already getting super fine root hairs on it. It's rooting so fast. I probably could have put it into a bigger pot. So this may be one of those situations where in the not too distant future, I will be taking it into a larger pot, even though it hasn't been that long since we repotted it. But I'm super happy to see all of that growth kicking off. I'm super happy that we have a new leaf about to push out. I feel like this is definitely the start of the comeback for this one. All right, let's go look at another one that we need to look at in place next. And I think we'll go upstairs and take a look at my cyclamen, which is the first plant that I discovered flat mites on. Good news is, I think, fingers crossed, I think the flat mites are finally gone and it is starting to make its great comeback, but let's go take a look. Actually, guys, you know what? First, why don't I show you how the corms that I harvested when we were repotting the alocasia are doing, because they have taken off crazy fast. Faster than any of the corms I've propagated before, and I'm doing the same method that I always do. Once again, if you're not familiar with how I propagate my corms, I will place the link to that video down in the description for you. But let me go grab them real quick. Okay guys, so let's actually start with the two giant, and I mean giant, these are probably the largest corms I've propagated before, that fell off of my Alocasia maharani. And the first one here is actually growing one of its roots straight up out of the bottle cap here, but as you can see, it is starting to get its first leaf. Now, those of you who are familiar with my propagation process are probably like, excuse me, miss, why is this still in a bottle cap and not in a bottle? Well, for two reasons. Well, really for one reason. It's huge, you guys. Like the little glass bottles, which everybody always asks me where I got those. I got them at either Michael's or Hobby Lobby in the jewelry section. I think they're designed to hold like small beads. But this corm, like these Maharani corms, are so big they won't fit in the tops of those. So I had to leave them in the bottle caps. And some of you have asked me this before about, can you leave them in the bottle caps? Yes, you can. But you might experience things like this where the roots try to grow out of there. And if you are leaving them in the bottle caps, make sure that when you go to remove them, you are really careful, because you're going to have a lot of roots wound around in there. This one is not going to be that big of a deal because it's actually a plastic cap. It's going to be easier to get out, but the metal caps, you have to be careful because the roots kind of seem to stick a little bit more and you just run the risk of tearing them when you try to take it out. But you can leave them in the bottle caps, but once that first leaf comes out, like get them out of there and pot them up. So first Maharani one here. The second, slightly smaller one is in one of the metal bottle caps, and you add some water to these, and you can see the roots are like sticking, they aren't sticking straight out, but they're piling up out of the top. It is about to get its first new leaf. It also is too big for any of the bottles I have, which is why it's still in the bottle cap. Now, the tiny dancer, I don't think I ever told you guys how many corms I found in that one, so it looks like I have a total, I had more than this. I wonder if I left a bottle cap on my kitchen sink, above my kitchen sink, that's hidden behind something. Maybe not. Maybe I was just thinking there were more, but I've got 5 here. And at the time that I went to prep them and put them into bottle caps, like I couldn't reach my container above my oven that has my other bottle caps in it. So I doubled up some of the corms. As you can see here, these were the 2 smallest ones. They are in one bottle cap here. I'm gonna try not to spill the water as I told you before. This is not what I recommend, you guys. I mean, obviously it's worked. That one is starting to push a new leaf. This one down here is starting to get its first, what I like to call curls, before it gets its new leaf. One of them is pushing a root out over here. Ideally, you would not want to put 2 in one, and I meant to separate these out the next day into their own bottle caps, and clearly I did not do it. So I'm gonna have to be extra careful taking these out of here. But now that they're already starting to push leaves, it's like I don't want to, like, I don't know. I probably could still take them out of here right now and try to move them into the bottles. Although these ones I think are too small. I'm having like opposite problems for my little glass things. These ones I feel like are too small. The Maharani ones are too big. Actually, these ones I can probably go ahead and move today into those little glass bottles that I have, because they are slightly bigger. And as you can see, they are getting ready to start pushing their first leaves. We do have roots arching up out of the top there, but not sticking like straight out. So these I could move over I will probably do that today into Wildcats. I did already move the 5th one into this, which once again, I'm pretty sure this came from Michael's or Hobby Lobby as well. Basically, it's the same size top. It might actually be a little bit bigger at the top than the other glass jars that are, or glass vials, I guess you would call them, that I use, but it just has a little bit more space at the bottom. So, but this one is also starting to push its first leaf, growing those roots down in there. So all of these are doing absolutely fabulously. And like I said, they have taken off more quickly than any of my other corms that I have propagated before. That probably mostly has to do with the time of year it is. There's more daylight hours where I have them. I mean, I propagate all my corms above my kitchen sink, you guys, which is a west-facing window. It is obstructed partially by my neighbor's 2-story house, but this time of year, they're getting the longest number of daylight hours. It's warmer up there than, for example, it is in the winter. All of them I do have under glass containers or whatever to trap in the moisture. So it might just be the number of hours they're getting and the fact that it's slightly warmer that's causing them to take off more quickly. So if you are trying this method yourself and it is winter time and you find that it's going extremely slow, it might just be for that reason. All right, now let's head upstairs and check on my poor cyclamen. And once again, let's just hope the flat mites are gone. All right, you guys, let me take the beneficial bug distribution box off of there. Now, I know it's still not looking 100% its best. It was way fuller than this when I discovered the flat mites. And sorry about the echo in this room. This is my gym, and because of the flooring and everything, it is a little bit echoey in here, but it was fuller than this. We did lose a lot of leaves to the flat mites. I cut off a lot of the leaves that had the most damage because I figured they had the most bugs on them. So that's why we're not looking our fullest, but we are pushing out new leaves there in the center. We are pushing out new flowers. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm not really seeing a lot of signs of damage. Now, also, I haven't been rotating this really because I haven't been wanting to touch it in case there were still pests. But so for that reason too, there's probably less leaves on this side, but let me rotate it around, even though I may be getting bugs on me. And so you can see here on the front, this leaf was nowhere near this big until recently. So that tells me that we are probably doing well. We are probably pest free. I need to get my microscope out and double check and see if I see any of the beneficial bugs still alive on there. I'm really hoping they are. I did give it 2 treatments of beneficial bugs. You can see some, and I gave it a sachet too this last time. It may be overkill, you guys. There's the vial from one of the treatments. But yeah, it may be overkill, but hey, if it works, it works. And I'm just, man, I'm actually kind of stunned at how large that leaf is right now. That's really making me feel good about this. But yeah, so we're gonna start filling back in. I am starting to have to water it more frequently now, so that also tells me that it's more actively growing and it's recovering. And I think we will make a full comeback. The big question really is just gonna be, at what point do I feel comfortable moving this plant back to its home in the kitchen? And that might still be quite some time from now, but all in all, this is definitely an improvement from where we were. It was so infested, you guys. Under the microscope, it was just like eggs everywhere, mites everywhere. It was so nasty. So super happy to see that it is able to produce nice big leaves like this again. All right, you guys, well, those are all of my current comeback kids. There are 2, let's take that back. There are 3 struggle bus plants going on in this house right now. I've mentioned before my Maranta, my red Maranta and my lemon lime Maranta, I did discover have flat mites as well. I'm pretty sure the red Maranta was the source of the flat mites to begin with. They are still undergoing a treatment. They are not looking their best, especially my red Maranta. I'm so sad about it. So hopefully they will be able to be part of a comeback kid video in the future, and fingers crossed the near future. But other than that, I am super happy that everybody else has turned things around, that we are going to start to see them getting back to looking their best. And if you have any planty comeback kids in your household right now, I would love to hear about them. Comment down below and let me know. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!